Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, discussing all things audiobooks with the authors that write the stories and the narrators that perform them. Brought to you by Viviana, Enchantress of Books.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Podcast. Today, I am chatting with narrator Teri Linden. Teri, thank you for being here and welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Viviana. I'm so happy to be here. And I'm not just blowing smoke saying that. It's like really nice to, as in person as we can, to hear your voice and be able to have a conversation. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. The check's in the mail. No, I'm just kidding. I'm really looking forward to this chat and getting to know you a lot better. And why don't we start actually with for you to tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been narrating and how you got started.
Okay, so let's see about myself. I have an actor's performative personality. So I knew from a very early age that this was something for me. Acting is what led me into audiobook narrating. I grew up in Michigan after my dad moved to the Detroit area in the 70s for work from Ohio. I was born in Dayton. I'm actually back here in Ohio. I've lived here with my husband of 21 years and our son, who's going to be a senior. He just turned 17 this week. We live in a town called Yellow Springs, which people might have heard of if they are fans of the comedian Dave Chappelle, because he always talks about it in his stand-up and in interviews. He lives here. He grew up here and our kids went to school together. And it's somewhere between Dayton and Columbus, just kind of, southwest Ohio. But it's a really nice historic town, and it's very, I like to when I describe it to people, I say, I thought I was really not that conservative minded until I moved to Yellow Springs. Mm-hmm. But I think I actually have a little bit more conservative mindedness than I thought I had. I always thought it was like real, because I always consider myself a liberal, which I am. But it's just like, oh, okay, wow, like that's liberal. But it's a really inclusive, historical, it's a nice place to be. And I wanted to move here when we moved here from the Detroit area for his job. I wanted to raise my son, Sam, somewhere that was to me kind of more a reflection of, society, culture. I was thinking New York and Chicago, where I lived for 10 years, and in Detroit. And so, it's been great. It's been really great being here. And when I was in the Detroit area, I was doing a lot of theater and then, all the film commercial stuff, not so much film then, but a lot of commercial, a lot of voice stuff. I did a lot of voiceover work. And Brilliance Audio, this is probably the late 2000s, Brilliance Audio, they're in Grand Haven, which is about a 2.5-hour drive. It's so interesting what audiobooks were even, what would that be? Not even 15 years ago now. I one day got an email from Laura Grafton, who's since retired. She was their casting person. And it had a synopsis of a book. It was a Debbie Macomber book. It was two of them, two Debbie Macomber books. And, and like the rate and the synopsis. And do you want to come to the studios and do these? And I was like, yeah, okay, great. So, and that it took a while to kind of get in with them because I know there was an audition, like I wish I could remember his name now. It was Mel something. Oh, he's been narrating for a long time too. Anyway, he was asked to put together a list of Detroit actors, and then, so they could audition. So when someone from the studio came, and Colleen Rocky, who was the head of everything back then, she came and she did an audition at a studio where we just brought in stuff that we were going to read. Well, I did that. Nothing happened. My friend Dan John Miller, who's a wonderful actor, narrator, and he'd narrated for Brilliance. He championed me in an email to Laura meet Teri. It's like what we do for each other, right? Oh, let me know. So he did that for me. And again, this is like 2007, 2008. Heard nothing. Dan and I are talking. We were, a little bit later, and he's like, "Did you ever hear anything?" No. So he did it again. I mean, it probably took about 6 months to a year. But then I just get this email. So I went to the studios, and they put me up in a hotel. And Grand Haven is this wonderful, we call it up North Michigan, but it's really on Lake Michigan, on the west side of the state, resort town. And it's, I'd gone there as a kid, stayed overnight there, gone with my parents, and up and down the coast, and then all over Michigan. People talk about, going up north, cottages, renting cottages, or people have cottages. And so it's one of these places. And so I probably went there for the next, oh my gosh, maybe, I'm trying to think when I got my studio, at least a solid 5-6 years. Wow. Several times a year, they would bring me in. And I became, as like Laura Grafton said, I was the poster child for daycare because my husband traveled so much. So I was always bringing Sam with me. And so I would, get up, working mom, take him to the daycare, go into the studios, go pick Sam up. And then we'd go to the beach and we'd just play on the beach. It was idyllic. It was like the best job traveling I ever had. I loved it. And so even though I had had experience as an actress, and I went to college for acting, I have a BA in theater from Chicago, Roosevelt University in Chicago. And I've done all kinds of training for voice and Shakespeare. And I've even coached. I had my own voiceover coaching business in Detroit before we moved here. Working with people in LA, New York, Chicago, like Pat Fraley, hosting them to come to Detroit and do their work for a weekend, like a weekend event, weekend workshop. So, I mean, I've had a whole experience, with that, but there was nothing that was like, okay, and for audiobook work, this is what you have to do. Like there's people making money hand over fist, writing books about it. Let me train you, blah, 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 blah. And really it's, it's, if you have training in other areas of the performance arts, if you know how to work a microphone, if you know how to, posture yourself and warm your voice up and manipulate your voice and, your diaphragm muscle, breath control, and you can sit for extended periods of time. It depends if you're working on by yourself or with directors live, like, Penguin Random House, they like to direct you. Can you take direction? Can you, self-direct? But if you have all this, it's just natural. It's natural. I mean, this is, but they would FedEx a script and you put it in front of you and you're sliding pages over one at a time quietly so the mic doesn't pick them up. And I mean, the discipline of working at the time in Brilliance Audio, I'd have an engineer and I would have a director on the other side of the glass where all I had to do was perform. And it was somewhere in between, like, if you listen to old school audiobooks, like Master and Commander, I think that's the early 90s, the old school stuff, it's like there's that. And then there was like Harry Potter, a little more performative. Right? Like, there's like the old school where it was just like, I'm reading you a story. It's less performance. Like I remember when Brilliance Audio would say, you do your end credits and it was narrated by, and then at some point they changed it to performed by, at some point it's morphed into this whole performing industry. It's really changed, but that's the short version. That's how it just wind me up. And I have had like no caffeine. It's always been an extension of my artistry, my performance-based career. I was somebody when I was in Chicago who, I would walk around with animal, dressed as like Simba from the Lion King, and it's 100 degrees out for, some like corporate event. I was like, sure, I can call this acting, for a paycheck. I mean, I just do anything.
Hey, right. Money's money.
As a paycheck. And so this was always just like voiceover and print work. and whatever, stage, commercial, industrial film. It was always just one more aspect of acting for me. And what it morphed into personally for me, I got my booth, which I got in 2012. That was a whole other thing. It was still before things sort of went in the audiobook. But it especially now, what we've seen because of the pandemic and everything, the work has sustained me. The income has been sustaining, and the SAG-AFTRA health insurance, all of that. It's just nice to have that consistent, especially living in a small market where I live as a union performer. It's, I always have to go out to get work pretty much. Yeah. So. Yeah.
It's really interesting as far as career wise, because it's also, there's a little bit of that scary factor of jumping off the cliff and committing yourself to do it, because it's freelancing, and freelancing is just a fancy word for project work, in a sense of it has a start, a middle, and an end. That's what it is. And you're literally, going from project to project. And when you're at first starting out, sometimes there could be significantly more time in between each project, and you become a master accountant on how to make that dollar last. And then you'll run into months where you're so back to back that you're going, I can't keep this up. And then your internal voice is saying, shut up.
Yeah.
You don't know when it's going to happen again. And you've been in it for so long now that you've seen how that
I've been in it forever, Viviana.
I mean, you started when you were 5. And
basically that's just around the house.
Yeah.
That's just me. Yeah. I mean, when I was in my first play when I was 14, and that was it. That's when I knew I wanted to be, like, I knew, I want to be an actress. This is what I want to do for a living.
Yeah. So that even while there has been very many negative repercussions of this pandemic, I think that a lot of people have realized that working from home does work in many, situations, including corporate, even though they don't still like it, but whatever. But also the ability for those performers that were doing stage acting and theater and TV to be able to go, I can do this from home and just worry about my voice, and I can do it in PJs. And some of you I know naked. So anyways,
okay.
Sean, Kristen.
Yeah.
It's like a running joke with some of them. It's hilarious. But it becomes that nature of having something that you can do that you love. It's just having a little bit of different formats.
Right.
Yeah. Do you find it that a little more difficult or easier to perform, considering it's just your voice?
Gosh, that's a good question. No, I don't think it's any different, or there's any more difficulty performing like just behind a microphone. It's just me using my voice with no one else around, than like being on stage, or it's just different. It's just different. And I think the biggest difference, when I'm thinking about when I'm compartmentalizing and I'm thinking about, working in theater, live theater, working on a film, and working in audiobook by myself, there's no director. Like, I'm the director. That's probably the most different, and I guess if it would be difficult aspect of it, it's really trusting my instincts at this point, not second guessing my choices. And knowing that it's okay if I turn something in. And I don't think it's ever happened, but that knowing somebody could come back and say, hey, that was too broad a choice, or could you give so-and-so a different voice, and then having to go back and re-record or something. But for the most part, it's just a different medium. It's just I'm wearing all the hats. And then there's the whole, it's interesting. I don't find a time management a problem. Like I'm really good at, if anything, it's the other way around. It's like, okay, I got to jump in the booth. Like I've got to go do this now, and I'll go, and then I'll like, okay, we're not coming out until, you have to pee, or you're going to knock out, you're going to go straight 90 minutes, go pee, come back, another straight 90 minutes, it's that. And I'm fine, it seems, giving myself time to get everything else done. Like if I'm sitting a long time, then I'll just get up and I'll vacuum. Or if I have a phone call with somebody, I'll sit on the exercise bike, or I'll walk around the house, or walk outside, walk the dog while I'm on the phone. Because, okay, that I suppose is a little difficult. That's probably one of the other challenges, is being so sedentary and just worrying, especially as I get older, how that's affecting my body, so just always trying to get up and move around.
Yeah. People think, and I remember the younger me, as far as even my friends, like, I can't wait to get a job where I don't have to worry about walking around and sitting. And now I work in an office situation where I'm sitting all the time, and I'm going, oh, my butt hurts, I gotta get up.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. It's true.
Yeah,
it's true. Yeah. And I didn't anticipate that, I didn't even think that was going to be a thing, that like, driving long distance, or sitting on a long flight or something, that, my hips would start like, oh, I need to move around. I need to shift. I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah. When you stand up, that whole things are cracking and going out. I'm like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah. I remember when I was really close to my grandmother, and she's been gone almost 20 years, but Nana. And I remember and I must've been in my early 30s, late 20s, early 30s. But I remember saying something to her, like, like I was like looking in the mirror, and like, it's like my butt was just like, it's like not in the same place it used to be. And she goes, that's gravity, my dear. Well, gravity and I are really good friends now. Yeah. We're super good friends.
Yeah. I have, little reminders. I've had to put little sticky notes on my monitor. And I also have like Laura, my trainer, in my head about, all right, Viv, you've been sitting there for an hour and a half, move your arse. And it's literally, not figuratively,
yeah, right.
Go stretch and things like that. And it's just one of those things that you sometimes don't stop to consider when it comes down to the job that you're doing.
Yeah, right. Well, see, that's just good self-care, to write yourself a note to like doing that. So I applaud you for that.
I listen to that. I'm working on it. I'm working
take
on
the note and just like
I'm a work in progress.
And I don't see that.
Yeah, I'm a work in progress. Laura says it's okay to admit that. It's okay.
I think we're all work in progress.
Yeah.
All work in progress. Progresses. Yeah. I think we are.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, and things ebb and evolve. I mean, a few years ago, the whole thing of a standing desk wasn't even around. So, things change, and that's inclusive of the audiobook process. I mean, I'm sure that when you got that first audition and you got cast in that book for that book, and you did your prep work, how you did it then versus how you do it now should have changed a bit. Right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I used to prep. Well, I just had the sheets. I just had the pages. Yeah. And the prep was still the same as far as, who were the people, who were the players here, and then highlighting, making sure like who's talking. I've noted like who's as I come up, so I'm not just like and Mom said go to the. He said, oh, so it's not just, so, and, of course, reading it and noting, all of that. And now I just work like so many do with I annotate, and I just, and so I'm just marking it up that way and highlighting characters. And then I use a spreadsheet, on numbers to track everything. So I do a lot of series. So just to track everybody and the voices, and here's that person again. What was my placement choice for them? I usually, when I think of characters, especially when I read, I think I've always done this, but it's always helped in audiobook. Like I'll read and I'll be like, she reminds me of like Alice and Janney doing CJ Craig on West Wing. And so then my like idea of that character's attitude and voice placement, and so when I'm doing them, I'm always thinking about Alice and Janney as CJ Craig, and and that's how I'll work. So that'll be a note, is I'll just be like CJ, like, and I'll be like, oh, it's that voice, oh, it's this voice,
Yeah,
this attitude.
That's a lot of something that a lot of you guys as narrators have said about casting your voices, and then casting those into the characters of the book. And that's kind of how you can realize where you're going to. But also, I mean, especially with series, it seems like authors love to put everybody at the table for a dinner party.
Yes, Ruth Cardello loves to do that. And her very good friend, Melody Ann, who also writes wonderful romance. I narrate for both of them, and I have for years. And I just know it. I just like I'm I'm about to get ready to narrate. I think it's book 11 in one of Ruth's series. And Barrington Billionaires, and I'm just like, I was reading it, and I'm just like, yep, here it comes. It's like the whole family reunion. Here comes everybody, everybody's in there, all the old characters, all the new characters, but that's fun.
Yeah. It's like, having literally like a reunion for yourself, but at the same time, it's one of those like, okay, today is going to be that day.
Yeah. No, and it's fun. I remember I did this book a long time ago. One of the Aunt Dimity series, and it was set in Scotland, and I think it was 5 or 6 senior citizen males, and they were all Scottish in a conversation. I was like, that's fun, because that's not one of my strongest accents without really like going over the top, and then so to have to really work on, where I'm placing the voice and the voice texture and the attitude, and and then trying to do like Scottish so you can actually understand. So it doesn't become about like this bad accent. It's just like the flavor of it. So you can actually understand what's being said. It's stuff I narrated a long time ago. I wish I could go back and narrate, because it's just, I just think I've gotten better.
Oh yeah. It's like with any skill set, whether you're a chef and your knife skills, or, an auto mechanic and changing the oil, and you learn tips and tricks along the way. You learn how you yourself interact with the tools and the timing of everything. And between also technology changes between when you started and now. So of course there's so many different factors. But also it saying, hey, I started is a huge thing, because how many people out there have thought about doing something, whether it's a career choice, whether it's a new hobby, whether it's doing just some photo shoots or whatever for fun. And we're scared to do it. We don't take that plunge. And so it's, even with career stuff, sometimes it becomes organic that you started in one thing and now you're in this career, but there was a ladder that kind of took you there. In a lot of cases, you guys just literally jumped into the lake and just said, this is where I'm at.
It was. I was really brought along by Brilliance Audio. I mean, I remember when I got there, they had this, I don't know if it was like a timeline, I think, something on one of their hallway walls. And it shows like from when they open their doors, and then it goes all the way through. And then it was like the day that they stopped cassette production. I remember that. And they were just doing CDs. And then stuff started to go on to MP3s. But it's like and then you were just working with an engineer. I mean, I can remember when Amazon bought them, because I was there when they had a big fire drill. And we all went outside, and they had these tumblers, these Amazon tumblers that Amazon had given everybody, and they gave me one. That was why, because it was like just to like go, oh, okay, but they really helped me with the discipline. You say like things happen for a reason, and the choices you make, right? And so I we had just moved here because we're talking about we want to like go back and be able to like do stuff that we wish we did then. We could known better. We could do it better. We could do it over. So we had just moved here to Ohio, and it was maybe a year later, it was about 2012. And my agent in New York sent me an audition, and it was for Audible. And Audible was looking for people to record audiobooks from their homes. Now, I had a very basic studio setup because I was doing voiceover auditions, mostly just auditions for my New York agent from home. I had my closet. It was typical closet setup, quilts, pillows, trifold screen. And I was not on Mac yet. And it was Audacity. It was Dell, just a little pre-mobile amplifier. I mean, just very basic. I was like, sure, I'll audition. And so I took a page from something I had done, a young adult called, God, what the hell is it called? Does it matter? Like, what the hell was it? So anyway, I did my audition. And then the next thing I knew, my agent said, okay, well, they want to hire you for a 9-week contract. And they're going to send you a list of, books and whatever downloads. So you can download the files and they were paying a substantial amount of money. I mean, it's the most money I've ever made on like a single contract. Mm-hmm. And it was like, here's a list of 21 books, see how many you can get done in 9 weeks. Dang. And they required 3 finished hours a day. So that's 6 hours for me because it's literally, right. And then I had to, send all my stuff off to, for QC. And then I would get the QC back and I would be doing that in the evening. So it was a lot of work. I got 3 of these contracts back to back.
Wow.
So I narrated, I think 54 books for Audible in a very short time. And what I found was it was later, like I was like, oh, because some of them would come and they would be just scans of books. So there was this backlog of books that they were getting on
contract. Yeah.
Yes. Right. And I was like, this is great. Oh, what a career. Do you know, I have never done another book directly for Audible again.
Times have changed.
Did I do such a shitty ass job? That's 54 titles, like so absolutely shitty. And I mean, I've met producers through, various whatever speed dating, APA events, all of that, or that's voiceover in LA. Oh, I have an audition for you right now. Great. It's nice to see you again. Never hired me again, but I want that's okay. I mean, I tell people all the time in this business, people like who are just, because I do mentoring. I don't offer it out there in the ethers, but people fall in my lap. And then I'll say, if you want, I can help you out, or I could help you with this. And the way I tell people is, number one, do not compare yourself to anyone. Because if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't compare myself to boo. No one. Okay. You are you. There's nobody that's you. Right. I mean, you can say, oh yeah, she's a such and such like voice. Yeah, great. Well, it's not your voice. It's not you. It's not your personality. It's not your essence. Don't compare yourself. And the other thing is, you don't need everybody who does casting and hiring, right, to have a relationship with and, to know you. All you need is a small pocket of people that you develop relationships where it's like the restaurant business, it's on the comeback. And I feel very fortunate now, but it's also, a result of me putting forth my best professional self and work, and myself, my personality, and having patience, right? Patience and persistence. I've got a nice little pocket of people who have faith and support in my work, and they have for years, and they come to me and they give me opportunities, and that's what it is. So Audible was great because Audible bought my booth, Audible bought my Pro Tools, Audible bought my Mac, Audible bought my training, because I
It
was
served its purpose, right?
served its purpose, and I am very grateful. And I've got the credits too, which is nice. But there are books that, I tell you something, I wish I could just go back. And so what happened was I thought, here's me, you talk about like trusting yourself, and this was only, I was old enough to know. I would have been in my early 40s, mid 40s, maybe early 40s, something, young son, he's in school, working during the day, loving life. And, this is when I was in the booth closet on the ground floor of the house. So picked up everything. I just shut the house off because otherwise the house would go off. So shut the house down when I'm working. And so then I would send my stuff off, at night. And then I would get the QC back. Well, my QC was coming back, and I'm telling you, sometimes it was like 100. And I'm like, this can't be right. I don't make that many mistakes. Like from what I knew, from what I was doing for Brilliance, in person for so many years, I'm like, I don't make that many mistakes. And so the QC, as I was like, I started looking at it, it's like, okay, well, in the sentence, I can't hear the D on the word and before you say the next word. And so, now we know that there's something called performance.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so there's a series. Oh, I just cringe. There's a series I did, and I found out that this was a contract engineer. So I'm thinking, okay, well, this is Audible. Like, if this is what they want, I'm going to give them this. Right. So I go back to this series, and it is so slow and stilted, and you can hear every single, and it's just lost any kind of me, right? It was all for the notes. I was just doing everything, that the notes. And then I find out that, this was a contract engineer the same way I was contracted. And the poor guy's system blew up, so they had to let him go. He didn't have the computer, bandwidth to handle the job anymore. And they let him go, and they assigned me to somebody else who was totally different. And I went, well, that's an aha moment for me, because what I didn't do was question anything. I didn't say, hey, wait a minute. Is this right? Or can we talk to can we talk to a producer about this? I was just like, oh, okay, well, it's Audible and they know what they're doing and this is what they're asking. So I'm just going to give them this. And now, it's really unfortunate for the author. It's really unfortunate that it's out there like that.
But also, it's again, a learning curve when you start anything new, and as learning also and trusting yourself, but also now that there's so many different ways to get an audiobook out there, not just Audible. You have these different venues and different opportunities. And we're also realizing that the author now has significantly more, power of sorts to kind of, say, hey, I want this kind of accent, or I need this kind of, role and things like that. Before, they used to just grab the book and then toodaloos, and that was done. Right. And so the author didn't have a say in the matter, or even to provide you guys with a list of characters and the accents and stuff like that. Now, everybody's come to realize that the narrator really likes it when the author provides them with the information.
Oh my gosh, I used to call authors. Yeah. So I would, Lewis Smith, Dog Hotel, the children's book. Gosh, am I saying that right? I think so. People are going to think I'm such an idiot. Listen, I've been ill, folks. Just coming out of a fog. So, forgive me for not remembering.
I'm sorry. The expectations of you being human is not supposed to be.
My middle name. Anyway, I think it's Dog Hotel. There was like a cartoon movie made out of it that she's wonderful. So I was given this book to narrate of hers. It's a memoir, and it's called Who Killed My Daughter? This woman's daughter in California, she was kidnapped and they never found her murderer. And she thinks it's the Vietnamese, that there's a Vietnamese gang or mob or something. And so and so I'm tasked, right, with I'm like, this is a really important story. this woman's alive. This is her daughter. So like, can I have her phone number? You know, so,
Yeah.
you know, so I'm like, I was talking to Lois Smith on the phone. You know, and then I remember I talked to this one woman whose father is she wrote Malamud. Oh, is that his? I think that's his name, Bernard Malamud. He's a pretty prestigious 20th century American writer, and his daughter wrote a biography about him. And, you know, and that's where I was like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm going to talk to this woman. And here's me, you know, I'm thinking, oh, it's that whole East Coast, New York literary circle of genius, right? It's like, just, you know, and I don't want to sound like an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Well, it's good
that. Yeah.
But it's good that they were giving you that information, because many of the narrators that I've spoken with, and even the authors, they would say that once they got the book, whether, you know, it was the narrator or the stuff like that was it. There was no communication with the author. Even with the big publishing houses, there was always a publicist that would kind of be more going back and forth, and sometimes things got lost in translation. And and
it's like realtors. They don't want the buyers and the sellers to meet.
Yeah. And now,
ridiculous.
yes. And now it's like, here's my number. Here are my handles for social media. Here's my email. You need something, let me know. And vice versa.
Because we're all trying to serve the story.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is. You know, to me, I'm just trying to best serve the author's voice. Like, that's it. Like, if I'm on stage, I'm just trying to help serve the story. You know, it's all serving the story. What's my piece? What's my part of the big production? You know, it's not, I'm just a piece, you know? So the more that there's collaboration, I tell people all the time, I love the ensemble stuff. You know, I like jumping in the booth just for a short amount of time. And then being credited with a bunch of people, you know, and see how it all comes together on an ensemble piece. I really like that collaboration.
Those are becoming more and more popular in the romance genre as far as multicasts. And it's been nice to kind of have that variety, and even the style of the writing, as some of them have been more play-like as well. Those have always been fun to hear. But I'm also the girl that would be totally fine with a solo narration, so long as they do it right.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because I'll bring up Ruth Cardello. You know, and she, you know, the chapters, I think Melody Ann too, they do go back and forth between, you know, boy, girl. And to me, that's not daunting, because that's how I started, you know, and it's just, to me, it's just an attitude shift, you know, if it's in that first person, even if it's in the third person, it's just an attitudinal shift, you know? Yeah. So it's, but yeah, that, you know, we're talking about the indie thing, and of course, Pink Flamingo, right? Like, it's like, yeah, you know, thank goodness for Pink Flamingo and Sarah Puckett, and the opportunity for authors and narrators to work together, you know, and find each other, and to have the collaboration that you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really interesting in the past maybe 4 or 5 years, where a lot of the narrators have been producing the books themselves, as far as that, you know, interaction where they're, you know, the author would go straight to the narrator and say, hey, I want you, and how does production work? And they're like, oh, I'll take care of it. I know that Emma Wilder has done stuff like that, to then creating like Pink Flamingo, creating the you know, lyric audio and all that other ones that have the production companies, and even
and
now
Audioflow,
yeah, and
Jacques Prato.
See, and that's different too, because she wasn't a narrator, where you know, but she had a love of books. There's also like the Audiobook Empire. That's another one that is fantastic on getting things like that. And that there's so many different venues now where an author can have the conversation with someone and know the process and figure out if they want to have it single narration, you know, duet or multicast, and what does that look like. And even the writing style of some of the authors has changed, knowing it's going to go into audio just for the flow aspect of it too. And that's been fantastic. And so, as much as with any kind of industry, things have gotten really good as far as the technology, but as far as the members, and there's still all these awesome, fantastic up and coming narrators that are just phenomenal. And I'm just waiting for them to explode and become the next hot thing out there, and just have that continued trajectory of enjoying what they're doing as a listener, but also knowing that they're happy what they're doing. It's just so much fun.
Yeah. Well, and, new narrators who, I mean, gosh, again, going back to when I first started, pegging me to do Debbie McComber, but I mean, my identity is straight beyond middle-aged white woman, just cracking that box wide open, and so the Audiobook Publishers Association, for a couple of years, I've been working with their diversity, equity, inclusivity, DEI outreach, specifically in a mentorship program, co-chaired it for a couple of years with narrator Ron Butler.
Oh, yeah, he's awesome.
And he's I'm proud to call him a friend. And they're going into their, I think, 5th round of mentor-mentee pairings. I think there's 3 pairings a year. But we basically, working with producers and narrators, worked with, Macmillan and Penguin Random House, and then volunteer narrators like myself, using Macmillan Audio's in-house mentorship program as a guide, created this program where experienced narrators can help new people, who want to be narrators. And it's not just pairing them, by experience. There's like a whole survey, a whole process, and it's by their identifiers and their comfort level. Like, is it really important to you to be paired with somebody who identifies similarly to you? And how many books from 0 to whatever. But it's just been really wonderful. And through scholarships, because you have to be a member of the APA, but through scholarships, then many of these people come in for scholarship memberships for a year, and they're really, it's just such a stepping, it's such a small pebble, because I think we're working from the ground up, where I think, the people who own companies and who make acquisitions to rights are, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But it's like you do what you can.
Yeah. I think it's one of those where with traditional corporate world, you have a certain level of, generational thing going on in the higher up ends of things. And they're really stubborn when it comes down to change. And sometimes we have to start from the ground up. And I think that the audiobook industry is doing a really great job of moving that, stepping stone out more and getting more stones and stuff like that, to be able to have that diversity and inclusion and just have open dialogue, I think is huge. And for authors,
yes. Yeah.
And for authors to feel and have that saying, this is, I love you. You're great, Teri, but my character is African-American. So we need to find an African-American narrator, and so on and so forth. And that they feel comfortable, because they should have from the very beginning, but again, that's another conversation, that they feel that they can now say stuff like that. And that the narrators could also say, hey, I would love to do your book, but I realize that your character is Latina. I know this girl over here who is a great narrator, that's and she's Latina and she's all this other stuff, and so on and so forth. And that's where I think the dialogue that is happening is fantastic.
Right. I had a conversation like this in one of our, I think it was one of our volunteer meetings with Deepti Gupta, right? And she, and she's like, I want to do romance, and it's like, but it's what I think of. I'm like, oh yeah, like why, even though the characters, are written from a white woman's perspective, that you as with a white audience are reading it, or me as a white person reading this, and I don't even think about the skin color. Well, why can't somebody who's non-white narrate that? And because, and until the playing field is equal, which it's not, it's like, they go, well, why can't you narrate Terry McMillan then? Because I'm already narrating, the majority of what's out there, or because that's not my authentic lived experience, And why wouldn't you want someone who, I was just offered an audition. I didn't get it, but I was offered an audition. I did my first book for Greenleaf. It was a business book. And so then I was offered another audition, and it was all about finances, financial stuff. And I went, I had a life in this. I had like 5 years where I was managing mutual funds and trading in an investment, third-party investment company in Michigan. I was like, oh, I know, you have that on your profile. I was like, oh, well, good for me. Somebody read it, But I thought, why wouldn't you want somebody
with the experience? Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, it's going to be interesting to me as I read it. And so I'm going to make it interesting for you. I don't have to work as hard. There's going to be terms and stuff that comes up that I'm going to be like, oh yeah, that come up that I'm like, oh yeah, I know. I don't have to work to learn how to pronounce it. It's lived experience.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me.
And it's also about the inclusivity and the diversity and bringing someone else in and sharing the cake, as
sharing
I like to
the
say.
Cake. Yeah. Sharing the fruit from the trees.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, we probably do, but Tova, Lacey Laurel.
Yep. I know her. Yep.
Tova. Awesome. And who else? Vikas Adams.
Yep.
Is that right?
Adam. Yep.
Yeah.
Adam.
And I can't remember, maybe it's just us, but we're going to be sitting on a panel during Allure.
Yeah.
We haven't even brought up Allure yet. I'm bringing up Allure.
No, yeah, we're done. It's great.
And it's basically, it's for authors or anybody who wants to attend, but it's just gonna be like a round table, and I'm going to be there to support and chime in, or, just anything, like probably things I've talked about just now that have come up, because I do not fancy myself an expert in anything. Continuing to learn, just learn as much as I can about my own identity, and, seeing things through a different lens than I didn't know I even had, It's
absolutely.
Like, I have all these other, I didn't know I had this other lens over here. Let me put this. Oh, okay. Oh, that's what really happened. Oh, that's what I've been thinking. I didn't know that. Yeah. So, it's just, that's also one of the things that when that came up, I was like, oh, I'd really like to help with this. And I'm really impressed that Allure is having that opportunity for people just to like say, oh, okay, well, I've got a question, or, and authors, I'm sure nowadays, well, how do I describe people? You got to be so careful, but I'm just like, you just have to ask questions.
Yeah. And I think it's just having the conversation is the first biggest important step. And you had brought up Allure, and there's so many things happening. Is this going to be your first convention that you're doing an actual signing? Because it's being its first event ever of its kind, in that it's specifically for audiobooks.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. I've never done anything like this before. So it's like, put your fears away, check your ego, just go have fun. I think I mentioned before we started talking. I was in Chicago about 10 years. I went to school there at Roosevelt University. And all my early acting and training, everything was Chicago. And I took my son, I took him a few years. I took him actually the year before COVID. So it was like maybe summer 2018. I went in for some casting, and I brought my son and took him to a Sox game. And I was like, wow, it's like, it still feels like Chicago, but it's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. I haven't been there for a while. It's been a couple of years. There was a RT Book Lovers Convention. So it was Romance Times was a magazine, and it was the Book Lovers Convention. And I went there years ago, all by myself and my best friend at the time. And we got on the bus, went to the stadium where the players are and stuff like that, looked outside around a little bit because the game had just finished, and we got back on the bus and we came back.
Very busy, very a lot of people.
Yes, it was a lot of people.
A lot of people.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see the city now, again, with different lenses, right?
Yes.
Figurative and literally, because I wear glasses, and just kind of getting to meet everyone that's going there, meeting some of the other attendees and really authors, nice. and sitting in some of those panels as a panelist, like we do in the marketing one, but also as a listener.
That's right. Yeah.
And things like that, and having those conversations of how we can continue to improve everything from the process to the communications to casting and all the other fun, but also have fun.
Just with fun,
people,
There's a lot of fun stuff planned. I just got asked to be a part of a scavenger hunt.
Oh, nice.
I was like, what's that? What am I doing? And
that's an added really thing they just did recently.
I was like, I'll play. I'll do that. And then, and I've got, the speakeasy Friday night, the little bar, and then the ball.
Mm-hmm. The Fire Nights Gala. Yeah.
I did.
You got your outfits?
Dress. Yep.
I think right now everybody's like, I don't know what to wear. And I'm like, whatever it is, just make sure you have comfy shoes. Okay.
I'm wearing sneakers. I'm wearing some of my,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have probably like my Stella McCartney kicks on or something. Yeah. I'm doing, it's going to be a nice formal dress with some sneakers.
Totally awesome. I'm really contemplating that because I as much as I love the concept of the dressing up, the fact that I am going to be the host of the red carpet and talking to you guys and standing up and walking everywhere, I'm going, maybe if I buy a cute set of sneakers.
Yeah, you need some nice trainers. Yeah. See, then I'll see you to be like, you got your trainers on? I'm like, yes, I do.
Look at that. Show that.
Yeah, and the Palmer House is just, you say you liked history, so
you're
gonna like the Palmer House.
I know. Yeah, I'm not staying there, but I will be hanging out a lot there. And it's such an old building. And I remember, I think, walking by it the first time I went and just looking on the outside. That was something too, from Chicago's perspective. I was constantly looking out and up because there's such details in the building's architects. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, there's a gargoyle up there. And look at the lines. And is that a window or a door? Either way. That
stuff should be in the scavenger hunt.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Find the gargoyle in the green, And but it's one of those events that I'm looking really forward to. I know a lot of people are a little nervous because we haven't peopled in a long time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, excited because we get to people. So it's like a weird double-edged sort of source and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be fun. There's going to be so much things going on there and meeting people and just getting to connect with you guys and continue to have the conversations there that I'm sure if you haven't listened to this yet, have that say, hey, I love that when you do this accent and what's your favorite and all that other fun stuff. So
yeah.
So you were actually was bringing up the accents a little bit ago. What is your favorite to perform?
Favorite accents. Gosh, I don't know. Probably anything in the United Kingdom. I like Irish. There's this guy, one of the series, I mean, you're going to ask me like for upcoming stuff. Yeah. One of them is Robin James. This is independent writer. I actually came to her. I narrated the first 5 in her series through Find a Way. And then she asked if I would just do them independently with her. And they were cool with that, So I just finished my 10th book, and it's a legal thriller. Cass Leary is the protagonist's name. She's an attorney. So it's a Cass Leary legal thriller series, but her former fiance, who's tied to the Chicago Irish mob, keeps popping in and out. And I adore him. And his name is Killian Thorne. And I just adore doing his voice because I can get really, just on here. I just love.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's just sexy and and he's Irish mafia sexy, just it's Killian, and so I just love cast, and I just so probably that.
Okay.
Probably Irish.
Mm-hmm. And you've done several different genres, from children's books to cozy mysteries to, romance and of course business and math.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, I have allergies in mathematics. Is there a genre that you have yet to narrate in that you'd love to?
Oh, that's a great question. I would like to do like a historical biography. Yeah. You're talking about thinking outside the box. It's like, why can't a woman narrate, Babe Ruth? Why can't, I love baseball. Well,
you're putting it out there now, so that's good. If anybody's writing that book.
It's like I think, and I know why. Of course I know why.
Times are changing, though.
You think about the listening audience. Yeah. What's going to make money, and do we know that person and whatever. But yeah, I would really love to do more stuff like that, like, historical or even sports. I think it would be challenging. And I think it would be really fun. I have a history minor. Yeah. I love history. So it would kind of be, cool. That'd be great.
Okay. And do you have a favorite currently that you've narrated as far as the genre goes? Do you prefer one over another? I mean, I know they're all awesome. I should be saying
romance.
No.
And romance.
Funny enough, no. I mean, it's the amount of times cozy mystery has come up, I've been like, all right, cool. And it's okay to, I didn't say that what you didn't like. It was like, which one's your favorites? We always have a favorite, from cakes to ice cream to
everything I narrate. It always, there is like romance in it, a fiction. So I that's probably why I'm just like, oh no, romance, because it's, I just narrated this wonderful, it's the first one, about cozy mysteries, this pet mystery series that was written in the mid 2000s, and Find a Way in Orange Sky, they're putting to audio. And so I just did the first 3 and I loved it. The protagonist, and there's this like romance kind of thread between her and, this guy that she lives in LA, and she runs a no-kill animal shelter. And so she's, that somebody dies. So,
and of course we have to figure out who it was and who done it, absolutely.
I really like narrating just anything well written. Who doesn't? But things that when I'm reading them, when I'm prepping them, I look forward to continuing to read. It gets me excited to get in the booth and try to really serve the story with my choices.
Yeah. That sounds like a fun series. I know Audible has it already up for pre-order, so I'll be including that stuff in the post.
Nice.
They're up for pre-order. I was like, oh yeah, those are the books I recently saw on your list, and they look cute. And it was like,
they really are, and it's nice to be able to share something like with like my parents, who, like 77, 83, and they're dog people. And my dad was just talking today about his 2 hours a month he spends at the no-kill shelter in the reception area, and the cat Socks that gets on his lap because he just wants to be touched. And my dad wrote for like 10 years. He was their grant writer. And so I'm just like, hey, I'm doing this series. I think you guys would really like it. Because I know they would, it's,
that's fantastic.
It's like, it's light. There's no gore. There's no, intimate. Yeah.
It's cozy, hence the cozy mystery. Yeah.
Cozy, I know. Mystery. That's right.
Yeah. So it's great to have the different genres, to have a bit of a palette cleanse. I know that as much as I love romance, and that's also why I tend to jump genres from paranormal to a historical to a contemporary. But also sometimes just getting out of the romance itself and just getting something different. It's just like okay, cool.
Yeah. Well, it's like just anything in our art, it's getting different experiences, getting, stretching. How many times people, like, you think about people like Sally Field, the actress Sally Field was, started The Flying Nun, and she'd really break the mold. People have to break the mold to, look, I want to, it helps me as a performer to step into other genres, other types of experiences of work, and not just be pigeonholed, right? It's like we were talking about how, narrators get pigeonholed into what they can do based on their last name, or, and it's like, no, I can do other stuff,
Or even I've seen it too, where they've done a book or two and it's done so well. And now they've been the Mafia King for 15 other thousand books. And, or they're the Playboy in every book that comes out with a Playboy type character. And it's like, no, it's okay. You can do something else. And they have to kind of like stretch out in there. Or the girl next door happens to sometimes. I'm like, it's good. I don't mind the girl next door, but your range is really good. You should do something. And they're like, yeah, we're working on that. I'm like, cool. So it happens too, but yeah, it's really great that there is that capacity to listen and jump around and all different genres and get new voices and get new accents and new authors in there. So it's all that fun stuff.
Oh, and I'd imagine that some people are like, hey, I don't want to mess with a good thing. And that's fine too. I worked with an actor once on a film, and he had worked with Patrick Stewart, Picard, Jean-Luc Picard, right? And he just said how much, what he got from Patrick Stewart was how much Patrick Stewart enjoyed being Jean-Luc Picard. And I think like if you do look at like social media, I mean, he loves being this role, and here's this amazing, I mean, I've seen him with the Royal Shakespeare Company on stage, it's just an incredible, versatile, performer and artist. And that's okay. It's like, if this is your jag and this is what and you just want to do this, then, you're right. It's really nice, to have the choices and then to have the opportunities, from people to come in to try different, like you'd mentioned, what the hell did you mention?
I don't know. There's a lot of talking.
Genres. It wasn't romance. What's the other genre?
There's historical, there's fiction, cozy mysteries.
No, that you did.
That I've listened to. It's one of those things where I've jumped around and I follow sometimes the narrator. So like for me, using the Patrick Stewart's example, I discovered him as Jean-Luc Picard, and I love the Next Generation. So learning that he has done movies and he's done theater. I went a hunting a la Google and looked at certain things, and it's like, wow, it was fantastic. It was just great to see that stretch of the thing, and then also kind of seeing like the timeline. So if he did this play before he was Jean-Luc Picard, you kind of look like, oh, he kind of brought that character a little bit into that season or that series or that one thing.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And to kind of pick up on that, and I'm like, oh, okay. It was
Don't
nice
you love
to do.
Michelle Hurd? Don't you just? I just think she's the neatest person in the world. I just think she's so cool. Oh, I know what it is. It was a what the hell is that? Paranormal. And it began with a P. Yeah, paranormal mystery. I did. So I.
And some people may not even realize that there's a paranormal mystery genre out there, right?
It's just Carrie Schaefer. It's so much fun because her protagonist was a 60-year-old former FBI, been shot in the leg, smoker. Her name's Maureen. Really sarcastic, really just like bitter, like whatever. And I thought, God, and this is and she does this. She will write protagonists, it's like the BBC. They cast women over 40, women over 50, go figure, to star in their series. That's what she does. She writes more women, who are older, and it's nice. I wish people would write like romances for, people who like second chances, people who are like in their 40s, 50s, even 60s,
It would, I think they're getting into that place where they're going into the older characters. And so I think there's been, heroines that are as old as shocking 35 and heroes that are at that almost 40 mark.
No. That's not no.
I know this. You know this, but
it's like you've got kids, or I mean, it doesn't have to be a tragedy, but I have a lot of friends who, they're divorced and they're engaged, or they were engaged, they're not anymore, or they're remarried, or I think there's just a lot to that. And I think about that. Listen, who's buying your books?
But also too, I think that there are a lot of more books being written nowadays because people have, again, had the conversation and discussion and have said to the authors, I want to read about someone more in my demographic age group wise, because I'm sorry, as a 20-year-old, and in an internship when I did those, I was not in an office with a billionaire. They did not look like that. The people in the office, and none of that happened. And so,
please don't even get me started. Can I tell you how much I hate Pretty Woman?
Oh, yeah.
So that's the one negative thing I'm going to throw out there, just because that's my, I hate it, starting with the title and going from there. Because it's like what you're saying. And now it's, it's part of a tour package. Dayton's got the Schuster Center and the national tours come in and they do some wonderful stuff. But I traded my Pretty Women tickets out for Respect, Aretha Franklin. I was like, I don't even want to, and the fact that, it's like you're talking about, oh, here, let's put yourself through college by prostituting yourself, and you're going to meet Mr. Handsome, and he's going to take you away from all of this. Let's make a musical out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things where there are certain things that were ahead of their times, just because, again, the conversation was being had. At least other things are going realistically. The likeliness of a success story coming out of that kind of thing is very unlikely. And we also never want to shame anybody either for sometimes having to do things to get by.
No, not at all.
But things like now they're having characters that are plus sizes or curvy, and that's the other thing too that they're still working on, as far as a curvy girl can get the hot guy, and things like that. And and there's nothing, untoward toward and things and that's where I think the romance community is starting to grow significantly more, as far as the different types of books that are out there. I mean, we have aliens with multiple appendages, so why not curvy girls? Right. Yeah. Why not the curvy girl, people? Come on, we got aliens, and that's like, that's you guys are falling for it. What about the curvy girls, please?
I know.
I know. Or the lumberjack boys, hey, it happens, but it's getting better. And I think that as we continue to have the dialogues and the conversation, it will just continue to go there. And as long as we're promoting those authors too that are writing these stories.
Yes.
And that's the other thing too that is important.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing too that's important is not to always be working, because life is short.
Yeah.
All work, no play is, makes for a boring life. So when you're not working, what do you do for fun?
Well, I have 2 German Shepherd dogs. So, and we've got this wonderful nature preserve called Glen Helen in our town that I can walk to from my house.
Nice.
So I spent a lot of time walking, mostly Leo. He's the 4-year-old and he's got the most energy. Birdie's 10, she's almost 11. And she's a slower, just kind of just follow her around, but walking them. And then, it's a really nice neighborhood too. There's a riding stable close by and country roads with another riding stable. So that's a lot of that. Talking to my girlfriends, I've recently connected in a really, really good way with several friends who have known me for a long time. And so that's become really important. Just making sure I'm chatting. I'm talking like an hour or two, like old school.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then my son is a hockey player. And so I can't believe I'm going to say this. It's going to be like his last season playing hockey. He's been on the ice since he was like 5, but he's going into a senior year in high school, and hockey, he already had a few scrimmages this summer, but the practices start up next month. And then games. I mean, he's going to be playing games from November through like early March. So I'm just a hockey mom. That's my most fun, is just going and hanging out and watching him play, watching him practice, watching him play. So
cool. Is he planning on continuing it after school, or is he not?
No, it's a pretty competitive,
yeah,
kind of like anything else. Yeah, it's pretty competitive.
Okay.
And it's interesting, the school he goes to a school that has a hockey program, because not a lot of them do, especially in Ohio.
Yeah.
I mean, it's mostly like Massachusetts, Chicago, Minnesota, where there's a lot of hockey, Canada, of course, New York. But none of the kids, so he's been on the team for 2 years. No one has gone on. And a couple of them, they could have. I mean, they were that good, but like one of them, I'm thinking, who just graduated, he's just gone to Georgia Tech for engineering.
Nice.
He could have gone anywhere for his brain or for his skating ability. And his mom said he really just wanted to be recognized for the brain aspect. Nice. So he's, I think he took his hockey bag with him. I told my son, I said, you'll get to school, you'll figure it out. And maybe somebody will be like, hey, there's an intramural. You always have the skill. You've got the equipment.
Oh, yeah.
You want to jump on a men's league. Yeah.
Exactly. There's so many opportunities now for stuff like that from a more hobby perspective, but even, competitively wise, but just more for fun of sorts, not necessarily leagues. But yeah, I'm glad that he's doing that. It's definitely some of those things that are, some of these sports are specific to the region. The fact that Florida has a hockey team is just mind-boggling.
Isn't it great though? It's kind of great in a way. It's like, wow,
I'm going, okay,
Yeah. Well, when we lived in Michigan, one of my friend's husbands at the time was he was in recruiting, one of the assistant coaches, and in recruiting for U of M. So I kind of got to know a little bit there and about just the competitive aspect. And, and I mean, if it's girls hockey, forget about it. It's some couple girls that he played with when he was younger in club hockey, one of their parents, I mean, they're both retired veterans. We live by the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So there's a lot of military families, and both of the parents are both retired, but they were driving their daughter all over the place, out of state, just to play tournaments, or, 2-3 practices a week, an hour and a half away, Columbus or Cincinnati or something. And then college, it's the girls get recruited again from, Canada or even overseas.
Yep. The Olympics.
Overseas, so it's so competitive.
It's definitely a commitment. Mm-hmm. That's for sure. But yeah, I mean, that's a lot of fun stuff that you get to have though, outside the booth.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to have to figure out what a lot of that is. It'll be opening to new fun stuff when my son goes off to college next year. So
there'll be that time in those moments where you miss them. But then you also realize that, there's a different type of energy and there's a quietness to it. My kid still lives with me, and but I've had friends that have had that, and they're now going like, it was hard at first because you're just used to the go having the kid around, and you don't stop ever worrying regardless of how old they get or anything like that. Right. But also it becomes a time for, again, like you were saying, self-discovering and realizing what you like and not. And that's also how sometimes the community of romance has started, is with women that now have the time to potentially read a book versus running around in hockey, games and things like that. So and that's also how a lot of the writers started too. And like, they're like, oh, I had the time because the kid was off to college. And so I thought I should get back to that book I was thinking about writing 20 years ago. I'm like, well, good thing you did.
Yeah.
The other thing too that I love doing here on the podcast to get to know the guest is play the game of 2 truths and a lie.
Oh yes, I'm ready for that. I'm ready. I did my homework. I'm ready.
Yes. It's a good thing I give you guys for the homework. It's always like, hey, can you be my guest? And by the way, there's homework.
You see how I am off the top of my head. I'm like, and then this guy, what was his name? What was the genre? I don't know my name. Who am I? I'm dead in the water. So Homework is great.
Yes, that's good. But I always find it interesting how it gets played as far as the options that you guys provide and how you say them and how you select them. So it's always a fun thing. So if you're ready, you can tell us your 3 things about you and you have to figure out which one's the lie.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
Okay. I play the cello. I drive an electric car. I play chess.
Says the artist that does a lot of things and it's an environmentalist. Okay, great. Damn it. These are good. Okay.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I'm thinking of them.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where all of them is possible and plausible, why not? And other things I'm going, okay. Is the drive an electric car the lie?
Nope.
Oh, good. Okay. Then play the cello.
Yep, you got it.
Okay.
Yeah, I played chess with my dad, my 83-year-old dad in Oklahoma. I play on a chess app with him every day.
Oh, nice.
That's I lose to him all the time, but I was like, let's play again. So yeah, he taught me when I was young and his mom taught him. And so yeah, big chess player.
Nice. Also cool that you drive the electric car. So that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. It's my son has my Honda Element that's now 11 years old that he ripped the back seats out of. Well, they come out.
Of course.
Fits all of his hockey stuff, But I loved that car. And so I was like, let's just go browse. I ended up getting a Volvo XC40 Recharge. And it only gets about, 220 miles on a charge. And I can go out of state with it. One day I think we'll be there, hopefully, where all the gas stations have like the,
charging station.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't take forever.
Oh, goodness gracious. I freak out sometimes about not having the charger with me when I go to events. Like you'll see me at a lure with like 4 or 5 power, things attached as far as when my battery goes low on the phone, I can just plug it in because it's like, where's an outlet? Did I bring the right cord? I can only imagine that intensity of like, oh shit, the battery's going to die.
It's an electric car.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I'll tell you though, I really like it. And I really like I go, oh gosh, like the whole thing with the gas prices and all that. I'm like, what? You don't have to worry about that. Gas station, I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I don't know. It's grown on me. Mm-hmm. It's grown on me.
Yeah, I think that as long as we continue to have places for the charging to occur.
Yeah. I don't trust it. Even like you can map it. So like I was going to St. Louis and St. Louis is about a 6-hour drive. And so I like, map and it shows you like where the charging stations are on the way and about how long, it's going to take. Well, it put an extra hour and a half onto my drive. And we were talking earlier about like how we get stiff as we get older. And I was like, well, but then I just don't trust that, like, I'm not going to get there to that Walmart or whatever. It's going to be like out of order, or there's going to be any other car sitting there that somebody's left for 8 hours, and it's like, now I'm sitting there and I need, I don't trust it that way. I wish, because it's a really nice ride. But
yeah, I'm the girl that will pull up her tank and drive for like when I've gone to Atlanta or Savannah. And as soon as I hit that half mark on my tank, I'm like, where's the gas station?
Oh, me too.
To refill back to the full. And sometimes there were times where my husband or whoever I was riding was like, but you still have half a tank. And I go, listen, I don't know where we're going as far as availability for gas stations. And I'm not going to get caught off guard in a gas station where, nothing is there except for tumbleweeds and, zombies can come out at any moment.
That's right. Like I'm that way about going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like if I start to feel it, I'm like, I gotta go. Is it an emergency? Yes. Because I have too many times, like, well, I'll just hold it till the next thing. And then there's a traffic jam. And then I'm sitting there and it gets worse. And I'm not doing that anymore. I'm just like, gotta go.
Certain things are not worth it. And others are just a matter of just peace of mind. I mean, there was that one time, must have been, I think it was Savannah or Atlanta, or even then the route's very similar from where I'm at. And I had to stop for gas because I was a little bit under that halfway mark. And the map said gas station at the next exit. So I get out and I'm going, where is it? And the map is telling me make a left. So we did that and everything. And it's literally an abandoned gas station. And there was nothing. There's, trash on the floor. And my husband's like, so before the zombies come out and attack, we might want to get out of here. And I'm like, yeah, let's go to the next one. So,
oh my gosh. Yeah. You're right. I didn't even think about that.
Well, yeah. And there's nothing around either except for the highway and trees. So we're like, we're not going to risk this. It's okay.
Right. And if you were almost on E,
Well, yeah, it was a little under the half mark. Yeah. And to me, that's enough. And
that's enough. Right.
Yeah. More than enough. Before I'm like, no, I got to go get gas.
Yeah.
So it happens. Well, before we go, can you tell us what you're currently working on and what's coming up next for you?
Yeah. So I'd mentioned the Pet Mystery Series books, and those are by Linda O. Johnston. And you said they're on pre-order now for Audible? Yeah, Beaglemania, Hounds Abound. I love the titles. Beaglemania, Hounds Abound, and The More the Terrier.
I know, I love those.
So yeah, those were a lot of fun. And then there's going to be more books to those. Mm-hmm. There's 7 total. And then I talked about the Cass Leary legal thriller series. So Burden of Truth is the first one. I just did book 10, Cold Evidence. And that's by Robin James. And then an author who I think I've narrated all but one of her books under her pseudonym Carrie Ann King. I just did, and this is a co-narration, and it's called Improbably Yours. And it's just a lovely little fiction read story. The heroine is 30, and she's got this life that's kind of falling into place that she doesn't really want. A fiance and a job, and and her grandmother, who died when she was like 6, on her 30th birthday, she left her this request. It comes with this treasure map that she actually drew as a kid, to go to this island and find the spot where she's supposed to bury her ashes. And so that's the whole book, and it's just lovely. This little created island and the people and
the journey.
And it's called Improbably Yours. And I think it comes out in October.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Lots of fun listens for us audiobook lovers. So that's great.
Well, and I mentioned Ruth Pardello. So the Barrington Billionaire series, I'm going to be working on that next. Loathing in Linden. Melody Ann. If you look my name under Melody Ann, you'll see, what I've narrated of her work. And then what do they call themselves? The authors, clean romance. Yeah.
I don't like that title.
What's it? So what would you call it's a light romance?
Well, see, the whole thing with the clean part is that the sex scenes are not existent. They just fade to black, and there's nothing except for maybe making out. Even then, that's light. It's almost like a Hallmark moment.
Hallmark, yeah.
So we could work on finding a different.
It's different because then you say, well, then something's dirty, and
it's just that negative connotation on the opposite of the clean.
That's what I was asking. I don't know what, but so I'll just forget that. Yeah. Romance author, Elena Johnson, and she also writes under a pen name Liz Isaacson. So I'm working on a little series of hers as well, and and I've done another series for her that's really nice. So
cool.
Yeah, so I did give some props to some romance authors.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just abundance of different genres that you've narrated in, and so there's something for anybody that listens to audiobooks, which is one of the lovely reasons I love books in general, is because of that anybody can pick up, whether it's the memoirs or the biographies, but the self-help books or the culinary books and the romance and then all this other stuff that falls underneath it, that there's a story for everybody and that everybody can enjoy it regardless of status or, technologies and, where we're at. And so we're very fortunate as well that we have that ability to do it. So
yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Teri, for taking the time to hang out with me today. It's been a pleasure. Almost. I'm keeping you for afterwards a little bit, but in the meantime, It's been such a pleasure for talking to you and getting to know you. And I'm looking forward to hanging out at Allure in September.
I love your voice too.
Oh, thanks.
It's such a great voice. So yeah, thank you so much. This has been fun.
Thank you again, everyone, for hanging out with us. I will be including Teri's social media accounts, as well as all of some of the stuff that's coming up for her in the post over at Viviana Enchantress of Books for you guys to check out. And until next time, happy listenings.
Thank you to all of our Audiobook Lovin Podcast Patreon. Special thanks to Nixley Zenner, Carol Liebner, Brittany Robinette Leiter, Michelle Bastard,
Brandy Schmidt, April Branson.
The Audiobook Lovin Podcast has special Patreon access levels. Join today to receive benefits including early access to episodes, shout-outs, special exclusive content, and much more. Support the podcast by becoming a Patreon at www.patreon.com/audiobookloving. We thank you for your support.
Thank you for joining us on the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, hosted by Viviana, Enchantress of Books. For links and more information discussed in today's episode, previous podcasts, or the Audiobook Lovin Series, please visit our website, vivianaenchantressofbooks.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a positive review wherever you listen to our podcast. Until next time, happy listening.